Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something that I think everyone listening can relate to, and that is self-sabotage. Have you ever felt like you are your own worst enemy? Like you're ready to climb to the top of the mountain to reach your goals, but something's holding you back? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be diving deep into Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You, to understand this feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how this book kind of reframes the idea of self-sabotage. It's not about this like self-hate. It's more about this misguided attempt at self-protection.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was something that really drew me to this book as well. So instead of thinking of ourselves as like inherently flawed, we have to understand where these self-sabotaging behaviors actually come from. Wiss uses a really interesting example in the book. She talks about someone who sabotages their relationships even though they so desperately crave connection. It's like they're terrified of being alone, but they're even more afraid of what true intimacy might demand of them.
Right? It's a perfect illustration of how our past experiences can really,
Yeah.
whether it's past hurt or rejection, create these unconscious patterns. It's like our brain is trying to protect us. It's trying to protect us from reliving those painful experiences,
Hmm.
even if it means kind of staying stuck where we are.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how do we actually break free from these patterns, especially if they're unconscious? It feels a bit like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
Where Weesist argues that the first step is really confronting denial. Oftentimes we're in denial about the role that we actually play in our own struggles.
Yeah.
We blame external factors,
Right.
other people, or just plain bad luck,
Yeah.
instead of acknowledging our own choices and behaviors.
Yeah, I'll admit I've definitely spent some time in that blame game before. But if owning our choices is that first step, what comes next? How do we actually start climbing this mountain of self-sabotage?
That's where Weist's concept of resistance comes in. Have you ever noticed that feeling of tension or anxiety that creeps in when you're trying to step outside of your comfort zone? Maybe you suddenly feel this urge to clean your entire house instead of finishing that important project.
Oh, absolutely. For me, it's suddenly deciding to reorganize my entire sock drawer when I have a deadline looming. It's like my brain just goes into overdrive to find anything other than the task at hand.
Exactly. But instead of seeing it as laziness or procrastination, Weiss wants us to understand resistance as this like natural psychological response. It's our brain's way of trying to protect us from the unknown, from the potential discomfort or failure.
So how do we work with this resistance instead of letting it win? I'm guessing ignoring it doesn't usually work.
You're right, ignoring it can actually make it stronger. Weiss suggests a three-step approach. First, acknowledge the resistance without judgment. You know it's okay to feel it. It's a natural part of the process. Second, try to identify the underlying fear or concern. What's the worst that could happen if I succeed? And third, break down the task into smaller, more manageable steps. Even small steps forward are still progress.
That makes a lot of sense. It's less about trying to conquer the whole mountain in one go and more about finding a sustainable path forward. But what about those kind of pesky negative emotions that often come along with self-sabotage? Weiss actually has a really interesting take on those, right?
She does. Instead of seeing negative emotions as obstacles, Weiss actually reframes them as valuable guides. She emphasizes the importance of emotional intelligence, which is the ability to understand and interpret your emotions, not just react to them.
So instead of trying to push those feelings away, we should be trying to understand what they're telling us.
Exactly. For example, anger can signal that a boundary's been crossed or that a need isn't being met. Sadness can help us process loss and let go of what's no longer serving us. Even guilt, which is often seen as a negative emotion, can point to untapped potential or areas where we need to make amends.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. It's like instead of being the enemy, our emotions can become allies on this journey. But there's another piece to this puzzle that I find fascinating, the role of our brains in all of this. Winnis dives into some pretty interesting neuroscience, right?
She does. And she introduces this concept that I think helps explain why. Even when we consciously want to change, our brains sometimes seem to work against us. It's called the homeostatic impulse.
Okay, that sounds a bit intimidating. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so think of it like this. Your brain is like a thermostat, but instead of just regulating your body temperature, it also tries to regulate your mental and emotional states. It wants to keep you within a certain range of comfort, even if that comfort zone isn't actually serving you.
So it's like our brains are trying to keep us at base camp, even when we're yearning to climb higher.
It can certainly feel that way. And that's where self-sabotage comes in. Even positive changes, like starting a new relationship or going after a dream job, can trigger discomfort, and our brains seeking stability might try to pull us back to familiar,
Hmm.
even if unhealthy patterns.
Wow. It's like we have this internal tug of war going on, but understanding this homeostatic impulse seems crucial if we want to move forward, right?
Absolutely. Recognizing these impulses as natural and not signs of personal failure is a crucial step. It's about working with our brains, not against them, as we navigate this challenging terrain of personal growth.
So we've started to map out the landscape of self-sabotage. We've seen how it can stem from a desire for self-protection, how
Yeah.
it can manifest as resistance, how our emotions can guide us, and how our brains can sometimes hold us back. But this is just the beginning of our journey, right?
Indeed. There's much more to explore, including Wiest's insights on how to release the past and create a new future. But that's a conversation for our next climb.
So we talked about how our brains and emotions and even our past experiences can contribute to self-sabotage. But what about the role of the past itself? How do we move forward if we're constantly tripping over old baggage? Weenus has some pretty insightful thoughts on letting go, which I think we all need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where the book The Mountain Is You gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Wiest challenges the common advice to just let go of the past. She argues that when we try to force ourselves to let go,
Mm.
we often end up holding on even tighter. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, totally. It's like the more I try to bury a thought or feeling, the more it seems to haunt me. It's almost as if the act of suppression gives it more power.
Exactly. And Wiest offers a different approach. She suggests that instead of trying to suppress or deny those difficult emotions from the past, we should actually allow ourselves to fully feel them.
So it's not about ignoring the past, but leaning into it. I have to admit, that sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It might seem that way at first, but think about it. When we try to push away those painful memories or emotions, they don't just disappear. They often fester beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts and behaviors in ways we might not even realize.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can push it down in one spot, but it'll just pop up somewhere else.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
But when we allow ourselves to feel those emotions fully, to really experience them without judgment, we create the space for genuine release.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? Do we just sit down and force ourselves to relive every embarrassing or painful moment from our past? I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of emotional marathon.
It's not about deliberately re-traumatizing yourself. Wiest suggests a more gentle approach. Imagine you're creating a safe space for exploration. Find a quiet place where you feel comfortable. Maybe put on some calming music. And gently bring to mind a specific memory or experience that's still causing you pain.
Okay, so I'm recalling the memory. And what was
Then simply observe the emotions that arise. Sadness, anger, regret, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
without getting swept away by them. Notice where you feel those emotions in your body. Tightness in your chest and not in your stomach. Just acknowledge their presence without resistance.
So it's more about witnessing the emotions, rather than getting lost in the story all over again.
Yes, it's about creating a sense of detachment while still allowing yourself to feel. And as you do this, imagine your present wiser self offering comfort and support to your past self. Recognize that you've grown and learned from those experiences, and you're no longer that same person.
I really like that imagery of offering comfort to your past self. It's like reaching back through time and giving yourself a hug. But let's say we've done the work of releasing the past. What happens next? How do we start building a new future? One that's not weighed down by old patterns and beliefs.
That's where Wiest introduces some really empowering concepts.
Yeah.
And one of them is inner child work. I know that term can sound a bit well out there for some people, but it's actually a very practical and powerful approach.
To be honest, I've always been a bit curious about inner child work, but I wasn't sure what it actually entailed. It sounded a bit too mystical for me.
It's not about literally talking to a tiny version of yourself. Think of it as acknowledging that we all carry within us these younger versions of ourselves, shaped by our past experiences. And sometimes those inner children are still carrying pain, fear, and limiting beliefs. They can hold us back in the present.
So inner child work is about healing those past wounds and giving our younger selves the love and support they may not have received.
Exactly. And there are a lot of ways to do this. You can try journaling, visualization exercises, or even just talking to your inner child in your mind. It's about offering compassion, understanding, and reassurance. Imagine what you would say to a younger version of yourself who's struggling.
That's such a powerful concept. I'm starting to see how this could be incredibly healing. But what about actually building a new future? How do we move from releasing the past to creating a life that we truly desire?
Wiest introduces another powerful technique for this, and it involves connecting with what she calls our highest potential future selves.
Okay, that one sounds a bit more, ooh. Are we talking time travel here?
Not quite. It's about using visualization to connect with the version of ourselves who has already achieved our goals, who is living the life we desire. Think of it as a mental dress rehearsal for your dream life.
I like that. So I'm picturing myself 5, 10, 20 years down the road, having achieved everything I've set out to do. What's next?
Really immerse yourself in this vision. What does your life look like? What have you accomplished? How do you feel? Don't just create a picture in your mind.
Mhm.
Try to feel the emotions, the sense of accomplishment, the freedom that comes with achieving your dreams.
This is making me think about those vision boards people create. Is it a similar concept?
There are definitely some similarities. But with this technique, the focus is on embodying the emotions and sensations of your future self, rather than just creating a visual representation of your goals. It's about feeling the joy, the fulfillment, the sense of purpose that comes with living in alignment with your highest potential.
So it's like giving yourself a taste of the summit, which can make the climb seem a lot less daunting.
Exactly. And this brings us to another crucial aspect that Winhust highlights: the impact of trauma, not just on our minds and emotions, but also on our physical well-being.
That's something I've definitely experienced. When I'm stressed or anxious, it often manifests physically. Headaches, tense muscles, even digestive issues. It's like my body is trying to tell me something's not right.
That's a really important observation. Winhest emphasizes that trauma isn't just a psychological experience. It's stored in the body, and it can manifest in a variety of physical ways, from those everyday aches and pains to more chronic conditions.
So these physical symptoms could be like warning signals, letting us know that there's some unhealed trauma we need to address.
It's certainly a possibility worth exploring. And this is where approaches that focus on healing trauma stored in the body, such as somatic experiencing, can be incredibly valuable.
This is really starting to paint a more holistic picture. It's like we're understanding not just the mental and emotional landscape of self-sabotage, but also its physical impact.
Exactly. And this holistic understanding is essential for creating lasting change. We need to address those wounds on all levels: mental, emotional, and physical.
I'm really starting to see the connections here. It's like we're not just trying to conquer a mountain, but rather learning to become expert climbers, equipped with the right tools and techniques to navigate even the most challenging terrain.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, the journey of self-discovery and growth is ongoing. There will always be new mountains to climb, new challenges to face.
Hmm.
But the skills and insights we gain along the way make us more resilient, more adaptable, and more capable of reaching our full potential.
It's interesting, as we've been talking about letting go of the past and building a new future, it really strikes me that there's an important piece we haven't fully explored. And that's the connection between our minds and our bodies. It's something we hear about a lot in a general sense, but Wiest really gets into the specifics in a way that I found fascinating and really practical.
Oh, absolutely. And she really emphasizes how trauma in particular can have a lasting impact on the body. We tend to think of trauma as this purely psychological experience,
Yeah.
but it can show up in so many physical ways.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, we've all experienced that feeling of butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous
Mm,
or, a racing heart when we're scared. It's like our bodies have their own language for expressing, what's going on inside.
exactly. Those are kind of everyday examples, but we just points out that more severe or prolonged trauma can lead to more chronic physical symptoms. Things like muscle tension, digestive issues,
Hmm.
difficulty sleeping, even chronic pain.
Wow. So those physical symptoms could actually be like warning signals, letting us know that there's some unhealed trauma we need to address.
It's definitely a possibility worth exploring. It's like our bodies are trying to communicate with us
Hmm.
to tell us, there's something deeper that needs healing.
Okay, so let's say we're starting to notice those signals, those kind of physical manifestations of our past experiences. What can we actually do about it? Does Wyest offer any guidance on how to address those physical symptoms?
She does. She emphasizes the importance of finding safe, supportive ways to process and release the trauma that's stored in the body.
So we're talking about more than just talk therapy here. Are there specific techniques or practices that she recommends?
She mentions a variety of approaches, including somatic experiencing,
Hmm.
which focuses specifically on releasing trauma from the body. She also talks about the benefits of things like yoga and mindfulness practices, and even body work like massage or acupuncture.
So it's about finding what works for each individual, what resonates with their own body and their own healing journey.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to healing. It's about exploring different modalities and finding what helps you feel safe, grounded, and connected to your body.
This is all so empowering. It's like we're not just at the mercy of our past experiences or our current symptoms. We have agency, we have choices, and we have resources available to help us heal and move forward.
That's the beauty of it.
Mm.
And remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. It's about taking those small, consistent steps toward greater well-being,
Hmm.
both physically and emotionally.
I love that. It's about progress, not perfection. Well, I think we've explored so much in this deep dive, from the hidden roots of self-sabotage to the power of emotional intelligence to the
Mm.
importance of honoring that mind-body connection. It's been a really insightful journey.
It has. And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring these concepts, delve deeper into the resources that are mentioned in The Mountain is You, and keep going on your own personal journey of self-discovery and growth.
And remember, even when the mountains seem daunting, you have the strength and resilience within you to reach the summit. Every step you take, every challenge you overcome brings you closer to the life you desire and the person you're meant to become. Keep climbing, keep exploring, and keep believing in your own incredible potential. We'll see you on our next deep dive.